Holy City Center Radio. It is episode 266, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, June 19th, 2024. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Holy City Center Radio. Got an awesome one for you. We have an interview coming up. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. First, there was two major anniversaries here in Charleston, so I just kind of want, I'm not going to dive deep into them. We're familiar with these tragic stories. Unfortunately, it's just something that, this time of year, it's these back-to-back days, but I want to make sure we remember them and that I note them here on the podcast. So Monday was June 17th. That was the 9th anniversary of the tragic shooting at Mother Emanuel Church in downtown Charleston. And then Tuesday, the 18th, is the anniversary of the 2007 Sofa Superstore fire that took place in West Ashley and cost the lives of 9 firefighters. And oddly enough, not only are the anniversaries on these like a day apart, but Emanuel, of course, they also lost 9 people on that day. So just weird tie-ins, a day apart, same amount of victims, very different situations, both tragic, of course. There were events around town, remembering the total of 18 people that we lost and what occurred on those days. So again, just wanted to note it up at the top, that we had these anniversaries that are significant to Charleston, in our newer history. These aren't, we're used to celebrating sometimes anniversaries of very old events. Not that this is a celebration type anniversary, but one that we just, commemorate each year in remembrance of those people. So just wanted to touch that up at the top, although, like I said, I'm sure you're all very much aware of that. But just think about those 18 people and all the lives that were affected by both events. Other than that little note here at the top, we're not going to dive into any stories. Nothing really going on in Holy City Centerland that needs to be talked about at this point. So we're going to dive right into the interview. It's a really good one. We're talking to Katie Hirsch. She is a arts administrator, historian, and curator who works at the Halsey Institute of Contemporary Art. Her official title there is Director and Chief Curator. Tells me a little bit about that role, what exactly that means and entails. She also talks about the current exhibits they have at the museum, what they have coming up. And part of that what's coming up section involves the museum's 40th anniversary celebration, which will be taking place on October 26th. It sounds like, based on her description, it should be a very unique and fun event, which should be no surprise. A contemporary art museum, they always seem to be doing something unique in their exhibits on a day-to-day basis. But when they host other events, it's always something a little different that you don't always see in town. And she makes a couple big points in here that I think are important. So I want to highlight them here too. The Halsey Institute of Contemporary Art is free to go to. It is located downtown specifically. It can be found at 161 Calhoun Street. It is part of the College of Charleston. And yes, free to go to. It is open 6 days a week. Now, they do have some events sometimes, and those are ticketed. But just as far as seeing what they currently have on display, it is free to go into. And she also makes it a point that you don't need to prepare for what you're going to see. It's not a stuffy, I think a lot of times, myself included, when you think of art museums, it can be stuffy or they're not very approachable. You feel like, well, I don't really know art. So, what do I do when I get there? It's trying to take all that kind of that perceived pretentiousness out of what people see with art, or what other galleries maybe in other cities can be like. This is a different experience, open to everyone, free to everyone. And it's meant to just be enjoyed, not to be, intimidated by. So I just want to mark that at the top. I've been there before in the past. It's a very nice space. Obviously, the exhibits change every handful of months or so, depending on what, the plans are. So, you always have a decent amount of time to go check out what's new. And if you like it, you'll have time to come back and see it again. And if it wasn't your cup of tea, well, just be a little bit longer, a couple more months maybe, and then something new will be there. So she talks a lot about everything involving this contemporary art museum. I don't want to say too much more, so I'm not stepping on her toes during the interview, but I think you guys will really, really enjoy it. So without any further delay, here is my interview with Katie Hirsch. And as promised, joining me now is Katie Hirsch, the Halsey Institute of Contemporary Art's Director and Chief Curator. Excited to chat with her and learn more about what's coming up for the Art Museum. Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, looking forward to learning more about what you all have coming up. But before we get into that, just so people have a little bit better idea about who you are, if you could just a little bit of, talk about your background, where you're from, and what led you to the Halsey.
Absolutely. I'm originally from Virginia, so a mountain girl in the beginning, now totally loyal beach girl instead. I was originally studying to be an academic, not at all focused on contemporary art. And as life has a way of happening, twists and turns, I ended up in Shanghai, China, where I worked at a contemporary art gallery. And I had truly a kind of education by fire in contemporary art and working with living artists and working in a really dynamic art space. And I moved to Charleston almost a decade ago, actually. And the
Well,
Halsey Institute was one of the first places that I visited. And I was just blown away. There was an exhibition up by an artist named Jiha Moon, who I would actually go on to have a long relationship with, which is really special. But her work was so provocative and playful. It was fresh and inquisitive, and I was like, "What is this place? I need to work here." And that happened about a year later. I started at the Halsey Institute as a curator in 2016, and I've been here ever since.
very nice. And I'm sure that experience in China must have been incredible for many reasons, not just that it set you on this current path that you're on, involving contemporary art, but just being in that country, I'm sure was pretty amazing.
It was amazing. I had never traveled there before I moved there, which was an experience in and of itself. But no, it taught me a lot about myself. I had an important experience of being a complete outsider. And that was really valuable to me, especially when I moved back to the United States.
And this may seem like a silly question, but and you can tell me such. But for people who kind of pay attention to art, kind of on the peripheral, they don't study it or anything like that. When you have museums like the Halsey who say contemporary art, obviously we're talking about art that is a little bit on the newer side. We're not necessarily talking about things that are very old. Are there any other very like defining characteristics of what makes something contemporary art? Or is that really just it?
No, absolutely. Contemporary art would just be the art of now. And most times, a contemporary art museum will be showing the work of artists who are still living or who have lived very recently, if it's someone who has passed on. So at the Halsey Institute, for example, we show the art of now, and that means we're working with artists who are creating work now.
Very
And
cool.
it's
And
that simple.
no, that's what I was assuming, but I didn't
Yeah,
know maybe if there were
you
some
never
specific
know.
characteristics or not. You never know if it's like, well, yeah, it's of this time, but also has to feature X, Y, and Z. But that's kind of what my assumption was. But I'm glad for those of us who aren't sure, we now know. And
Yeah, and that's the best thing about contemporary art is it can be almost anything you can think of. We've shown work, that's made of old chairs or old
mhm.
Tide bottles. So it can be almost anything when we're talking about artists working now.
Now, I don't know how much you know about the actual background of the Halsey, but if you have anything to share, obviously the 40th anniversary is coming up. Just anything about the institute that people may not know, and it's part of the College of Charleston, correct?
It is, yes. It's part of the called Charleston School of the Arts, but we are free and open for anyone from anywhere. You don't have to be affiliated with the college. And the institute started out as a gallery. It used to be called the Halsey Gallery. It was named for an artist named William Halsey, who founded the studio art program here at the College of Charleston. So it has deep roots to the creative community here in Charleston, and has just continued on that path for, it's hard to believe, 40 years now.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. That it's been around for 40 years. Sometimes we think of art galleries, you think they've been around for generations,
Right.
but this is still pretty young in all things considered. When you think about Charleston,
That's true.
especially, and the history of the museums we have around here.
Hmm.
So, bringing us now the present day, what is currently on display? If someone were to walk in there today, what would they be seeing?
Well, we have two amazing exhibitions by two very different artists. One is Spandita Malik. Her exhibition, Meshes of Resistance, focuses on women in India that Spandita has photographed and transferred these photographs onto fabric. And the women themselves embroider their own portraits and ultimately decide how they want to be seen, how they want their spaces to be seen, their worlds to be seen. So it's this amazing work that shares a lot of power with the women in the photographs who, in their own lives, might not have this type of power over their kind of existence. And then we have Elisa Harkins, Teach Me a Song. And Elisa is a Cherokee Muskogee artist, composer, musician, you name it, she does it. She's based in Tulsa, and she has a project where she documented 9 indigenous songs by nations around around the U.S. and Canada, and has made these objects that help teach us about what a song can mean. So she's transcribed the songs into sheet music. We have photographs of the singers, and then these beautiful handmade shawls that she created that honor the singer and their tribal affiliation and honor the song. So they're two really different exhibitions, but both of them, both Spandita and Elisa, share power with the people that they're representing. And the work is really grounded in collaboration. And so while they're doing this in very different ways and have very different subjects, they kind of have that connection between them. And they're stunningly beautiful. So they share that as well.
And obviously, as we mentioned, people can go and see that currently and be able to do that here for the next, handful of weeks. And
Yes.
then looking ahead months, not too many months away, I'll be here before you know it, but the 40th anniversary celebration for the Halseys coming up on October 26th. What do you all have in store for that celebration?
We have something wild that, yes, thank you for reminding me that it's not that far
Yeah.
away. We have a new fundraiser that we're debuting a new signature fundraiser. It's called Art in Motion. And we were trying to think about, like, how can we make something that is a fundraiser? Because of course, we need funds to help be able to do what we do for free, but we're so grounded in community and being accessible. So how can we balance that? So it's a 2-part event that will begin with a community parade here in the heart of College of Charleston. And in that parade will be banners made by artists from near and far, artists from the Halsey's exhibition history, including like Shepard Fairey and Colin Quashie and Kirsten Stolly, and by local artists as well. And the parade will process around the streets that wind through campus and end up in the Cistern Yard, where there will be a party with foods and drinks and music and all kinds of weird and funky activities. So, and the banners will be available for purchase within that party as well.
It
But
sounds
there
like
is
a.
a twist. There's a
Oh, okay.
twist. It wouldn't be Halsey if there wasn't a twist. So those banners that are the focal point of the parade, and they'll be displayed during the event. So they're for purchase for a flat price. No auctions, and a flat price. And you will not know the artist until after you've purchased it.
Ah,
So
okay.
it's
Sounds
like,
like it should be a
yeah,
real fun event, and the twist is nice as well, so you get a little bit of a surprise. And
yeah,
it sounds like it'll be a good, celebration of, hey, we're here, we're open currently, we have new exhibits constantly, throughout the year, but also here's a look back at some of the fun things we've done in the past.
exactly.
And actually before that, the next exhibition, for those who are wondering, okay, well, I know what's going on right now, I know about the party, what is the next couple of exhibitions you have coming up? I think there's one in August, debuting August 23rd.
Yes, so opening August 23rd will be Demond Melanson, As Any Means Are Necessary. And Demond is an amazing artist and a culture bearer of the Black masking community in New Orleans. He's a bead artist, and he's incredible, and he's never had a solo museum exhibition. So this will be his first, and he takes the talent for working in beads that he uses for these suits that he masks in, and has made wall-based work, so making portraits in beads, making masks in beads, and rhinestones. I mean, they're incredible. We'll be showing those, and a new type of object that he's made called a spirit suit, that is a suit that's just for display. And if you're here in Charleston or you visited the International African American Museum, you've maybe seen his Jaw Defender suit. It's that big green one with all the
Yes.
feathers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
It was
Demond.
incredible. I was
Yeah,
about to ask you that if it was him specifically or just, similar style, but no, that's incredible. If anybody's, like you said, if anybody hasn't been to the museum yet, the International African American Museum, I don't know if it still is, but it was on display and it's
it is.
incredible.
Yeah. And there's nobody working like him. He'll talk about he uses the smallest beads, and he incorporates really important historical narratives and figures and stories that uplift Black culture in New Orleans and beyond in his suits. He talks about using his suits and his work to talk about histories that haven't been told. So we are so honored to bring his work here to Charleston.
Now, kind of going back to you, your official titles, director and chief curator, and obviously that involves, you putting together these exhibits. But what specifically does your job entail? Like, how do you, in this role, how do you find who you want to bring in, who's going to be a good partner essentially for the Halsey? How do you make those determinations? I mean, I guess just a little bit about what you do, bringing these here to Charleston.
That's a great question, and I think about it all the time. Well, we're really focused on making sure that we bring work to Charleston that, number one, is really adventurous. I think that's at the core of all of the artists that we work with, is that they are adventurous in some way, adventurous in the materials that they work with, or adventurous in the stories they tell or the questions they ask. So we're always looking for that. We really want to be a space where art offers visitors new possibilities in themselves and others in the world around us. So that's kind of a lofty pursuit, but looking for work that does that. And we look really carefully at our exhibition schedule. I mean, over the past 40 years, and thinking about what do we want the next 40 years to look like. So thinking about who in our community feels seen or represented in the artists and the work that we choose. That's very important to us, to make sure we're always keeping a really diverse program that feels inclusive and that piques somebody's interest. Not everybody's going to like every exhibition, but there'll be something in there for somebody at some point. And I think that adventurous kind of point is the one that I keep coming back to, or looking for artists who are taking a new direction in their work, for example. Who are working in questions that are important to the community here in Charleston. We've tackled that. And so it's all those things. It's all those things kind of wrapped into one. And, one thing that we really love and feel honored to do is that we bring work here that, people can just I know you got to do the parking in downtown, and that's
Yeah.
not so great, but all you got to do is make it to downtown, and you can see world-class art from around the globe here at the Halsey. You don't have to go to New York or LA or London. You can come here to the Halsey at Charleston. So that's kind of always at the front of our minds.
And as you mentioned before, and I think it's good to highlight it again, it's free to get in and to see
Free.
everything, which is pretty incredible. Well, there's not much today that is free that you can still do as far as entertainment, especially. And you
That's
can show
true.
up and see all this art, as you mentioned, for free. I believe you all are open 6 days a week, closed on Sundays, but open for varying hours the rest of the time, correct?
That's true. And we have so many programs and events that surround the exhibitions. We've really focused on expanding the type of programs that we offer and the times of day that we offer them. So we have, like coffee hour, you can take advantage of if you're a morning person, or afternoon lectures, or evening happy hours. We really have something for everybody. And those are free, or 99% of them are free. So I encourage people to check those out as well.
Speaking of that, how can people find more information about anything we talked about, all things Halsey? What are the best ways for people to find more information?
Well, we've got our website, halsey.cfc.edu, or social media. I think our Instagram is probably the place where you can find the most information, Halsey Institute, and see what we're up to, learn about the staff and the interns, the artists, and sign up for workshops and things like that. So that's where I look.
And I feel like we've covered quite a bit in a short amount of time here, but is there anything else, whether it's related to the 40th anniversary, current, future exhibits, or just anything that it has to do with the Halsey that I didn't ask about, or you feel is important, or you just want to mention?
I think, well, we've talked again and again and again about how we are free, and I really do want to urge people to spend their $0. But I think, remembering that it's really important to us to create spaces for people to interact with artists, that they're not these like mystical sacred beings who we can't touch or talk to. Like, they're just people like us, and we bring them here for every exhibition, sometimes multiple times, and they want to talk with people about what's important to them and what's happening here in Charleston, and how do you turn a thought into a thing in an exhibition. And we really want to kind of break down these conceptions about contemporary art being stuffy, or that you have to come knowing something. I mean, I didn't know anything about contemporary art when I first walked into a gallery space and started learning about it. And you don't have to come prepared with anything but an open mind.
Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about all these things involving the Halsey Institute of Contemporary Art. I'm excited that the 40th anniversary is just a handful of months away. It sounds like it'll be a great celebration. For those listening, I'll have links in the show notes so you can visit the website and Instagram. Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
And that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you so much for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Be sure to check out the Halsey Institute of Contemporary Art when you have a moment. Remember, free, 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 free. There's not much you can do these days that is free. So be sure to go check them out, whether it's this exhibition, a future one, or also maybe attending that celebration in October 26th. Before I go, I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening, and also a big thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. A big thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show as well. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will be back with you on Friday. Until then, good night and good luck.